Good morning, welcome to USAC again. So we have a very distinguished guest together with us. This is a joint conference organized by USAC and Embassy of the Republic of Korea to Ankara. So our distinguished guest is an expert for many things. Actually, he has two hats. He's a former diplomat, ambassador, and also, so this is one hat, and also the other hat is he's also academic. He's professor. He has a very short bio. Let me read first Professor Kim Woo-sang bios first, and then I will give the floor Professor Kim. Ambassador Woo-sang Kim, Professor of Political Science at the Yonsei University, has served as the President of the Korea Foundation from 2012 to 2013, and the Korean Ambassador to Australia from 2008 to 2011. He received his PhD from University of Rochester in 1988. He has researched and taught international politics as research associate at the Hoover Institution, Stanford University, and as a professor in the Department of Political Science, Texas A&M University, Sookmil University, and Yonsei University. He served as the director of the Institute of East and West Studies at Yonsei University, member of the steering committee of the CSCAP. The guest columnist of the Duma Daily newspaper, member of advisory committees of National Security Council and the Republic of Korea Air Force, and currently he serves as a member of the advisory committee of the Minister of National Defense and special advisor to the Speaker of the National Assembly for the MIGTA. He has published many articles in such journals as World Politics, American Journal of Political Science, Journal of Conflict Resolution, and books on national security, strategies, and international relations in East Asia. So this is just a brief introduction of a very rich CV of Professor Kim. Let me give the floor to Professor Kim for his speech, then we will have a Q&A session. So for
it is really my pleasure, and I'm very much honored to have an opportunity to give a talk on pivotal middle power diplomacy for stability and unification of the Korean Peninsula. Well, 65 years ago, you all know that many Turkish young soldiers came to Korea and sacrificed their lives to help Korea, to help Korea to be a part of the world. If you didn't come and didn't help us, Korea must have disappeared. But you helped us, and we successfully maintained our national survival. And then with your help, in a very short period of the time, only about 30, 40 years, we've made our successful economic development, and at the same time, democratization. So we are so much proud of being number 10 to 15 largest economic, countries with large economies, and one of the 20 most democratic countries in the world. And without our blood brother Turkey's help, support, we could not have made this. And we know how to pay back. We have demonstrated that your sacrifice was not, fertile. It was by becoming very much successful. I think that to me that's good enough for us to paid back to you. We demonstrated that with your help, we become this way. Now, it's about time for Korea and Turkey, as I use the term pivotal middle power, to start to cooperate together for peace and prosperity of the region, in this region and in the Asian region. So today, I'm going to talk about Korea's role as a pivotal middle power for peace and prosperity of the East Asian region, including the Korean Peninsula. I think there are much to learn for Koreans to learn from Turkey, and also Turkish to learn from Korea. Although we are in about 9,000 kilometers or miles or kilometers away from each other, about miles away from each other, we are both geostrategically located in between, great powers, and there is very important strategies for us to play for maintaining status quo and to carry out these policies to prosper around this region. So my talk today, if is a little bit helpful for you to understand how Koreans think about our role in a strategic role in geostrategically located areas. I think it will be a successful one. Let me start with international relations around the Korean Peninsula. Korea faces, I can say, two threats. First one is, as I wrote down in the bottom, North Korean Kim Jong-un regime's threat of weapons of mass destruction, including the nuclear weapons. Okay? So this I don't have to explain. You all know that North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un is having already nuclear test, 4 times nuclear test, and right now UN Security Council Resolution 2270 is working, but it's very difficult for not just for Korea, but great powers, the member, P5 member powers, to make Kim Jong-un to get rid of these weapons of mass destruction. It's not easy. So there is one threat that South Korea is facing. We all know that. The another threat, potential threat, you may not think of these, most of the time, but for us, another really serious threat, which has something to do with the North Korean Kim Jong-un's nuclear threat, is the rise of China issue and potential collision between United States and China in the region. If there is any military collision in the region, it could be on the Korean Peninsula or around the Taiwan Straits. So either way, Korea has to be involved. We have a very strong military alliance with the United States, and if U.S. somehow entrapped into this conflict with China, then we have to be part in that conflict. So it's a very difficult situation. North Korean threat is imminent one, and rise of China issue and potential collision between United States and China is not an imminent one, but also very threatening one. And that has something to do with North Korean nuclear issue as well. Because to deal with North Korean nuclear issue, United States and China has to cooperate to deal with this issue. Even UN Security Council Resolution 2070 be successful, China's cooperation is a very important, critical one. Okay? So for United States to induce China's cooperation, they have to find a way to cooperate in the region. Okay? So that's a very important issue that I'm going to talk about today. There are the other two that I could mention. One is Japan. Well, that Japan become normal state, I'll explain that later again, when I explain America's policy toward East Asia. And another big power, great power, missing on this page is Russia, right? Russia also plays an important role. We always say Korea is surrounded by four major powers: US, Japan, China, and Russia. We are under four great power sphere of influence, and we have to play very carefully. Right? We have to move always strategically, otherwise Korea can be in trouble. But if we find a way, we could play a very important role, pivotal role, because no one country around the Korean Peninsula want to give up their sphere of influence to other rivals. Right? China wants to maintain sphere of influence on the Korean Peninsula. They do not want to lose that one to United States. The same, vice versa. U.S. always wants to maintain good ties with Korea. If Korea moves toward China, it will be a very scary one to U.S. and to Japan. So they always think this Korean Peninsula is important, like Turkey. Turkey is right in between Asia and Europe. You know, next to you, there's Russia and Germany and many important countries around. And the U.S. also wants to maintain sphere of influence in the region. So we share a lot of things. On Korean unification issue, China, US, Japan, Russia all have interests. But I can say their policies toward Korean unification will be based on their national interests, not based on Korean national interests, right? So unless Korea proactively involved in the process of unification, okay, it will be very difficult for us to be very successful. If major powers, based on their national interest, provide international structure around the Korean Peninsula, and if we had to survive under that structure alone, we can never be very much successful. We have to participate proactively in creating the structure in the region, which can be much more favorable to peaceful Korean unification. If I pick one country which would love to see Korea unified, you guess which country among four? United States or China? To me, it's Russia. Yeah? Russia want to sell their natural gas, yeah? Crude oils. They want to get a lot of payment out of transferring all the goods from the Korean Peninsula, go through Siberia toward Russia to Europe, right? To do that, they have to have a stable Korean Peninsula, but the North Korean Kim Jong-un regime is never stable. So they love to see Korea unified and become stable. Yeah? Other than Russia, I don't know, they all have their own national interest. They may like it, they may not like it, but I have strong belief that as soon as the unification process begins, then all four countries will support us. For China, they want to have a stable neighbors. So they do not want to see any kind of conflict in the Korean Peninsula. So stability is the best one. But they also would not want to see North Korea obtain nuclear weapons. So they want to cooperate on that issue with the United States and other countries. But if they push too hard to get rid of these North Korean nuclear weapons and make Kim Jong-un regime unstable, then it's not good for them. So they will not go that far. Right? So it's very tricky. So they will not love to see Korea unified because they want to maintain northern part of Korea as a buffer zone. But I argue as long as this Korean unification process begins, then they have to support us. If there is a country which does not support Korean unification process, then that country can become our enemy country. And all other 3 or 2 countries will be our friendly countries. Unified Korea, having good ties with others but not to its country, will be in trouble. So I'm very much optimistic that as soon as Korean unification process begins, Japan will help us, US will help us, China will help us for smooth, peaceful unification. Russia, absolutely the same. But how to start that unification process is totally different question. Very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult. To understand what's going on in the Korean Peninsula, I think that we should also understand American and Chinese national interest in the region and their current policies toward that region. Let me go briefly. U.S. vital national interest around the world, I say 4. The first one is blocking the emergence of regional hegemon. So in Asia, U.S. does not want to see China become regional hegemon and try to challenge U.S. hegemonic rule in the region. There is no such hegemonic rule, but what I'm trying to say is current existing economic and security order mainly set up by United States and other major countries having good ties with the United States, right? Since the World War II. So that's basically the status quo. And the U.S. do not want to see any countries challenging against status quo. And U.S. also wants to block the proliferation of WMD, nuclear weapons and others, especially these days because of the terrorism. Third, spread of free trade and democracy. Through free trade, U.S. become more powerful in economic terms, right? Through democracy, U.S. maintain good ties with those democratic countries and maintain status quo, international economic and security and political order. Right? The more you have friends, the easier you maintain status quo and homeland security. For China, the core national interest of China used to be just one, economic development. Since Deng Xiaoping in 1978, Chinese governments, Chinese Communist Party's goal was successful, rapid economic development. So to have that, they did not want to see any instability around the neighboring countries. They wanted to maintain good ties with all neighboring countries. But they, as always, maintained non-alignment policy. They did not want to have alliance partners. As long as countries around China accept one China principle, meaning China is the only country, and Taiwan, Macau, Hong Kong, those are only part of China's territory, then they'll maintain good ties with those countries. So one China principle and economic development, those are the core national interest of China. But until recently, those two were the key national interests. But in 2012, when Xi Jinping came in as a leader of Chinese Communist Party, started to argue that territorial sovereignty of the South China Sea and the East China Sea. Chinese people will say that since U.S. started to carry out their rebalancing policy toward East Asia, in response to U.S. rebalancing policy, they came up with this South China Sea territorial sovereignty. But anyway, the core national interest of China is now the three, including territorial sovereignty in South China Sea and East China Sea. For those national interests, the U.S. now carries out rebalancing to Asia, pivot to Asia policy. And if I summarize the key contents of this U.S. rebalancing to Asia policy, the first one is U.S. tried to engage with China in the region, and at the same time tried to deter China. The engaging meaning U.S. has to cooperate with China on many global issues, including climate change, terrorism, on many issues. And especially to resolve North Korean nuclear issue, U.S. need to have support from China. So U.S. wants to engage more with China on the one hand. On the other, U.S. also wants to deter China because China started to argue that South China Sea is under their territorial sovereignty. And U.S. wanted to maintain free navigation right in the region. That region is very important. If China take on those areas, then China can become really a threatening challenger to, regional hegemonic challenger to the United States. So U.S. On the one hand have to engage with China, but on the other hand have to deter China, especially on South China Sea and East China Sea. Second, U.S. rebalancing policy, rebalancing to Asia policy has something to do with alliance, U.S. alliance partners in the region. Japan, Korea, Thailand, and many other friendly countries. You must have heard recent news that United States is trying to build alliance ties with Vietnam, and Vietnam also would love to have alliance ties with the United States. It's changing. I think it's part of U.S. rebalancing policy toward Asia. Okay. First, reassuring meaning, U.S. reassure to provide nuclear umbrella to Japan, Korea, because Korea and Japan are threatened by North Korean nuclear weapons. Okay? And extended deterrence, including nuclear weapons. Okay? U.S. provide extended deterrence to Korea and Japan against potential threats from the region. But at the same time, U.S. is starting to argue that U.S. is not just a security provider anymore. U.S. wants to become security enhancer instead of security provider, meaning each country has to share more burden. For Korean security, Korea has to share more burden. For Japanese security, Japan has to share more burden. So Japan needs to become normal state. They are arguing, right? Japan, although Japan has a strong military capability, they only have a so-called self-defense force, right? And they want, Americans want to see Japan have a military instead of self-defense force. Americans want to make Japan to become militarily stronger so that they can be a good partner in the region. Okay? the same thing. It's not just American candidate Donald Trump who's arguing for more defense sharing, defense burden. U.S. rebalancing to Asia policy itself includes that burden sharing issue. At first, Koreans, thought that, wow, this is great. America now, start to focus on Asia instead of Middle East. American policy, their interest will move from Europe, move from Middle East to Asia. But then we didn't think of this burden sharing issue. They're asking Korea to pay more. But we have to pay more to defend ourselves. So that's reassurance and reassuring U.S. allies in the region. Restraint meaning Japan has a territorial dispute with China in the South China Sea, and Taiwan recently DPP leader Tsai Ing-wen became the president of Taiwan. Previously, there was a DPP leader, right, Chen Shui-bian, but he was a politician. Although he talked about Taiwan independence, he was very much political. But now people say, who knows about Tsai Ing-wen? They say Tsai Ing-wen is a true believer of Taiwan independence. Now, it could be a really threatening challenge against China's One China policy, One China principle. So, U.S. does not want to be somehow entrapped into conflict between Japan and China in the Senkaku Island or Diaodao Island in South China Sea, or U.S. Induced to participate war together with Taiwan against China on the Taiwan Strait. So that's restraining allies in the region. And absolutely, U.S. would not want to see South Korea becoming very aggressive against North Korea, so that we have a war in the Korean Peninsula. If we have war in the Korean Peninsula, U.S. automatically have to participate in war. So reassuring its allies in this region, but at the same time try to restrain its allies to become too aggressive in dealing with issues related to China. So those are key policies of pivot to Asia, United States pivot to Asia policies. Now, let's talk about China's policy, Xi Jinping China's policy. Xi Jinping, very recently, in September 2015, when he visited Seattle after a summit meeting in Washington, D.C., he said, hide and bide is over. From Deng Xiaoping until Hu Jintao, hide and bide was always policy. Although China become rapidly developing, especially economically, right? I mean, they always maintain the two-digit economic growth rate until 2010. Very recently started to reduce. The numbers started to reduce. But they always kept underneath. When Hu Jintao first used the term peaceful rise, they thought that it could be understood as an aggressive policy by Americans and others. So instead of using even term rise, they changed it, peaceful development. Right? So peaceful rise to peaceful development. So they were very careful about their economic growth. But Xi Jinping said, no, not anymore. Hide and bide is over. And then he demanded new types of great power relations with the United States. He said, we are G2. US and China are the same great powers. There are only two great powers in the world. We are G2 power. G7, G8, not important. G2 are important. And new type of great power relations, the demand that Xi Jinping made to Obama, the key was mutual respect of two countries' core national interests. In other words, especially the South China Sea, Xi Jinping wanted to hear from Obama that U.S. will not be involved. The South China Sea issue is for China, and U.S. will not be involved in that area. But the U.S. Obama did not answer any, did not say anything to Xi Jinping in 2013 when they had a summit meeting in where was it? Sunnyland, California. So 2 years later, September 2015, Xi Jinping said that there is no such a thing like Thucydides trap. But if two great powers make strategic miscalculation, then that may lead us into that trap. You know what Thucydides trap is, right? About 2,500 years ago, Athens were growing very fast, and then hegemon Sparta was very much worried about Athens' rapid growth. So the fear of Sparta about rising Athens was the real cause of the war. That's what Thucydides mentioned about the cause of Peloponnesian War about 2,500 years ago. Although they didn't fight directly, their allies, small allies, fought against each other, and they are entrapped into that great war, right? Big war, cataclysmic war. So Xi Jinping is saying that there is no such a thing like a Thucydides trap. So China and US will not collide against each other. But if we make a strategic miscalculation, in other words, if you do not accept this new type of great power relations, if you do not respect our interest in the South China Sea, we could be in that kind of situation later on. I don't think that China is still ready to challenge against the United States, but Xi Jinping said that by himself very recently. And if you look at Xi Jinping's way of setting up new type of regional security and economic architecture, you can see his willingness to change. Very recently, he suggested One Belt, One Road policy, right? It's a maritime Silk Road and a continental Silk Road. He wants to have Chinese military base all over the world. That's the basic ideas. Right? He's doing it. He's starting to borrow military bases in different countries, in Africa and other parts of the world. He started. And he also suggested to strengthen CICA, Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, and said that Asian security should be protected by Asians alone, not including external power, meaning, he didn't say who, but meaning United States and others, outside power. So, although he didn't pay much attention before, that was, I think the CICA was carried out mainly by Kazakhstan and other, but these days Russia and China become a really important part of this CICA. And China was very much successful in establishing AIIB, right? Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, especially to carry out that One Belt, One Road policy successfully. And many countries, including Korea, participate in AIIB. So all these seems to demonstrate that Xi Jinping China wants to reshape regional economic and security structure, order in the region. And that will not be accepted by the United States, because the United States will not want to see any potential regional hegemon rise fast and potentially challenge against the United States. Now the problem is, as I said, Koreans in the Korean Peninsula, we face two big problems. One is North Korean nuclear threat. Another one is the rise of China issue and potential to see this threat. If they collide against each other, Korean Peninsula could be the battlefield. And we do not want to be in the kind of situation, about 65 years ago again. We do not want to ask our blood brother, Turkish, to come to help us again. Instead, we should come and help you when you're in trouble. Right? We have to pay back. So these are two issues that we have to deal with. As in the beginning, as I've said, if you look at, there are scholars in international relations. The name Henry Kissinger, right? You must have heard the name Hans Morgenthau, Kenneth Waltz, John Mearsheimer. Those people have always said that international relations is great power politics. Great power establish the structure of the international system. And non-great powers have to live with that system. They have no influence in building that structure at all. Only great powers, distribution of power among great powers, and great powers' interest will set up international and regional economic, security, political structure. And we have to live with it. And I strongly challenge, not anymore. 60 years ago, yes, Korea was nothing. Our GDP per capita was less than $200. We're even poor. We're the most poorest country in Asia. We didn't have any voice. But not anymore. We are one of the 2050 club members, seventh 2050 club members, meaning GDP per capita, 20,000 GDP per capita, and 5 million population size. There are only 7 countries which meet that criteria, more than 20,000 GDP per capita and more than 50 million population size. We are only 7, one of the 7.
So there is a table here in this report, G20 report. If you look at the page 11, you can see the changes of economic changes for the countries. So maybe it's a good explanation for your.
Thank you. Economically, our economic size is from 10s to 15s, based on the currency rate, from 10 to 15, move around. And for militarily, there's an index. We are always ranked from 7th to 10th. So Korea, worldwide, one of the 10 strongest countries in the world. In terms of economy, military, and political influence. We have UN Secretary General, Korean UN Secretary General, right? We have the leader of the World Bank, Korean leader of the World Bank. So politically, we also have a power. So how can Korea just receive structure of the international politics, or structure of the regional economic and political situation just given to us, and we have to survive under that structure made by only 1 or 2 or 3 great powers. We cannot accept that. We proactively have to participate in setting up, in building the regional economic and security architecture, at least in favor of, in some part in favor of us. So we have to raise voice toward United States, we also have to raise voice toward China, for example. But it's not easy, right? One-to-one base, bilaterally, you deal with great power. It's not easy. But multilaterally, it could be, right? So like-minded countries, Turkey, Korea, well, in Asia, for example, Australia, Korea, Indonesia, who are almost exactly under the same situation. On the one hand, we see rise of China. We have to cooperate with China in economic terms. Our trade volumes between Korea and Korea and China are increasing so fast that trade volume is larger than our trade volume with the United States plus our trade volume with Japan. So number one is China. Number two, number three, together is still less than our trade volume with China. So we have to live with China. But we are threatened by China on security-wise. Yeah. You ask Australian people, you ask Indonesian people, countries around Chinese neighbor, living in around Chinese neighbor, they fear the same. Even Vietnam and India, right, wants to improve their alliance, not alliance, but improve ties with the United States because they are threatened by China, rise of China. But they also have to maintain good economic ties with China. So those countries, those pivotal middle power countries, together, okay, can play some role. For example, AIIB. When China decided to establish AIIB, our government was thinking of participating as an important partner, in the beginning, so that we can have a louder voice in the AIIB. But U.S. did not like the idea, so we are a bit hesitating because we also have to, pay attention to U.S. Later on, we participated. We decided to participate, but we was not. To me, it was a bit late. So instead of hesitating, I suggested at the time, Australia, Korea, Indonesia, for example, three, talk to each other and decide to join, and then talk to Americans and persuade Americans the reason why we had to participate in the beginning. If we participate, then we can play important role so that AIIB is not competing with ADB, Asian Development Bank, or IMF, but could be complementary one. By more American allies participating in AIIB, we could play that role. We could make the building process much more transparent and accountable, so that AIIB could be complementary to ADB instead of two institutions later on competing each other. So we could persuade the U.S. and for Korea, by participating in AIIB right away, when China decided to do so, Chinese will be very much, happy and thankful for Korea, right? That's one way of lowering down China's dissatisfaction, I see. There is some argument in the international relations. When rapidly rising power become more or less equal to a hegemon, if that rapidly rising power is much more dissatisfied with the existing order mainly set up by existing hegemon or status quo, then they are more likely to challenge and collide with each other militarily. But if that rising country is more or less satisfied with the existing order, then that collision will not be necessary. So in the IMF, if Koreans ask U.S., with the help, if we take side with China and persuade the U.S. to give more share to China, China in 2000, China in 1990 is not, China now is not exactly the same as China in 1990. But but China did not enjoy, bigger share in the IMF. Yeah? We could help China to get bigger share. Yeah? Because we are friends of Americans, we could persuade Americans, for example. Just like that. So, although China become very much successful, China always feel that they are not treated. Their status treated by existing power is not the same as their reality. Yeah? So they are dissatisfied. So if we some way find a way to make China become less dissatisfied, then it could be helpful for us to manage the situation, not China and U.S. collide against each other in the region. So pivotal middle power role, I think one of the most important pivotal middle power role is on that area. To figure out the way to lower down China's level of dissatisfaction. But at the same time, as a strong partner to United States who wants to maintain status quo. Okay? It's not easy, but you have to be very much diplomatic and political. Yeah. And pivotal middle power, because it's not a great power, alone cannot carry out that kind of policy successfully. You always have to be multilateral. You have to, like-minded countries together could successfully manage to do so. So on that part, there's a lot for Korea and Turkey to share. We are the 2 of 5 countries in the MICTA. We are the 2 of the 17, 18 countries in the G20. Right? G20 used to play a very important role when we had a world financial crisis in 2008. It was G20, not G8, to deal with this financial crisis issue on the regular base. Right? But now the importance, I think, seems to decrease. Now Korea and Turkey has to act together to make sure that G20 still play important role to deal with this financial crisis issue, on a regular basis. And MICTA, the same thing. It's not easy for 5 pivotal middle power from all over the world, from different regions, 5 regions, get together, because it's very difficult for us to have a common interest, right? So very difficult for us to cooperate on specific issue. But I think there's opportunity. I give you an example. If Koreans in the ASEAN member countries, and if we have a multilateral meeting, or we visit here, and when we meet with the Turkish leaders, every time we come here, every time we go to ASEAN member countries, ask, why don't you help us in the Korean Peninsula issue? Why don't you increase your level of criticism against North Korean nuclear weapons? Can you do that for us? If we always ask you what we really need, then next time we see you, you'll know that Koreans will ask us again on that issue. They have no interest in our, they have no interest in what we are facing. They only bring their interest. This is not friend. Friend, if you want to be a real friend, you have to have opportunity to listen to your friends' problems and figure out the way to deal with those problems for your friends first. And after maybe you hear 10 times, 10 different things, you may have opportunity to raise your problem maybe once. Then you'll become good friends. So MICTA, I think, on that sense is very important. Because we do not share any common interest. We can play a really important role for the global society, prosperity and stability of the global society. On those issues, we can cooperate. And after cooperation, after we have a speed, accelerate that cooperation, later on, one of us could bring our own problem, and 4 members will become very much supportive to that problem. And then international opinion, world opinion will come by. So it's not a short-term importance. It's always middle to long-term issues. That's maybe one of the reasons why middle power diplomacy is not so successful. Because the leaders, 4 years term, 5 years term, and then they disappear. New leader comes in. So who cares about 10 to 20 years later issues being important 20 years later? Only authoritarian countries where leaders survive for 10, 20, 30, like North Korea, right? May be interested in long-time issues. But that's one of the reasons why middle power diplomacy is not received importantly, but we have to pay attention. We have to raise voice for this important question, and in Seoul, more and more academics and the high-ranking officials start to pay attention to this role of pivotal middle power that Korea has to play. And I think that in Turkey, in Australia, in Indonesia, more and more leaders and intellectuals start to pay attention to this issue. So hopefully we can successfully cooperate and play important pivotal middle power role together. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kim, for your very broad and informative analysis of the Asian balances, new dynamics of Asian continent between the United States and China, and also the Korea's role in it and other countries' role, and also the middle powers' role. Also, is very quite interested for Turkey right now. So now we will go to Q&A session. As a moderator, I will give a privilege to ask the first question to myself. In this environment, actually, the United States have very deep alliance relations with both Japan and South Korea together. But these are bilateral alliance, it's not trilateral alliance since the Cold War period. So now there are some initiations by the United States to get together, get more closer relations between Japan and South Korea, and also the comfort women issue. About the comfort women issue, there was a deal between two countries. So, what is your perspective about the Japanese-Korean rapprochement, and also if there is a possibility of the trilateral alliance, military alliance between the United States, Japan, and Korea together?
It's a very important question, but for Koreans, officially answering is a very tricky question as well. You have to be very careful. Always issue related to Japan, I think we have to be very careful. Koreans visit many countries and travel. We have many tourists all over the world. And probably if we have public opinion polls, the most comfortable country when they travel around will be Japan. It's very much like we are at home. You don't have to worry about where my passport is. Oh, is there my passport? Oh, it's in my wallet. You don't have to worry. It's like you are at home, and you are in the street corner of your home, your house. But the problem is that what I'm trying to say is, as a neighbor, Korea and Japan must be and should be the closest one. We share the same values, the same, interest. We share almost everything together. The only problem is past history. Japan colonized Korea for 36 years, and during that period of time, many things happened, bad things happened, and including comfort women issue, and Japan they apologize, but they don't apologize from deep in the heart of their mind. That's the problem. They 2-3 Japanese leaders have apologized officially, but when first Japanese leader, for example, apologized, then 1 day or 2 days later, another cabinet member said something different. So for Koreans, they say, oh, they didn't apologize. It was just an official statement, no meaning at all. And so that problem went on, and past history issues there. Although we are very close, we share almost everything, past history is still there. For me, it's about time for Japan to really come up front and get rid of this past history issue. They apologize. Japan is great power enough, large power enough to do so. If we ask, Koreans who sacrificed, who was mistreated, ask 100 times, then they can apologize 100 times. What's the big deal? If we ask again, then they apologize again. What's the big deal? Sometime later, we won't ask anymore, right? If we start to feel, oh, they're sincere about their apology. Like Germans do, but they don't. So that's a big problem. Other than that, there's no problem at all. I think rise of China, Korea and Japan has to deal with this issue together. North Korean nuclear issue, Korea and Japan has to deal with it together. But it's not working simply because of this past history issue, comfort women issue. We all know sex slave, military sex slave, bad thing, but they say, no, we didn't do anything. It was a voluntary one. That doesn't make sense. But I again argue, Japan is great power enough to deal with that issue voluntarily, for good. I'm waiting. Our current government came in, and my president had the same kind of feeling. So my president, until Japanese leader apologize and deal with this issue, will not meet with Japanese leader. So for the first almost 3 years of her incumbency, we did not have a regular summit meeting. And it was really bad. It was really bad. Even if we are fighting against our enemy, leaders of two countries have to, on a regular basis, has to meet. We have to have a channel, high-ranking channel to deal with this problem. So we meet only once, regular basis, and then we don't have to meet. But if we like a Turkish leader and our Korean and Turkey become closer and closer, two leaders can hold maybe summit meeting 5 times a year, right? When I was in Australia, the Australian leader and my boss at that time, wanted to set up G20. So 1 year, I had a 3.5 year in my term there. They met how many times? 13 times. They call each other so many times. So they don't have to meet that often. Once at least, they didn't. My president and the Japanese leader didn't meet even once a year. But then we signed the official negotiation on this comfort women issue. Many Koreans think that it's not perfect yet. But anyway, we signed, and since then, our president and Japanese prime minister meet once a year. Okay, so that's I think a progress. That's a progress. We have have alliance with the United States, and Japan has alliance with the United States for interoperability. Anytime, we have to share our information, intelligence for the joint military exercise. We share almost everything. So 3 countries have to exercise together, but we try not to. It's not because of this past history issue. On some area we do, but we don't try to be like at the military alliance level, trilateral alliance level, because that will threaten China. They will make China feel they are really contained by countries and United States and allies of the United States in the region. So I don't think it's a good idea. And Australia, India, trilateral, quadruple, and 5, countries joint exercise. All there were suggestions, but Korea decided not to join. So Australia, Japan, U.S. once has done that. India together quadruple, they have done that, but they asked Korea to join, but we didn't join. We are right next to China. It's not a good idea. So I said, bilaterally. So we have a joint military exercise with Australia bilaterally. And I also strongly argue, so we do. When I was ambassador there, we set up 2+2 with Australia, bilaterally, not trilateral or quadruple. With India, with others, bilaterally we can do with any country, but Korea participating in a multilateral, military alliance, I don't think is a good idea. So that I think was shared by military and diplomatic leaders in Korea.
Now the floor is open for your questions and comments. Please, Mustafa, please identify also yourself.
My name is Mustafa Kutlay, Director of European Studies here in USAC, and thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for your speech. I would like to ask 2 quick questions, and you have already highlighted these questions, but I would like to learn more about your perspective. That's why I'm going to ask these questions. The first one is about the peaceful rise of China. Actually, in your presentation, you have quoted some realist scholars, and we know others as well, and they all say that in an anarchic environment, international order, you can never be certain about the intentions of other states. So whatever they say to you, in the final analysis, you have to be prepared for a potential conflict between states. So from this point of view, what is Korea's perspective about peaceful rise of China? How do you evaluate this general concept? What's your articulation of this concept in short? The second question is about the pivotal middle power diplomacy and its qualifications. Actually, you also highlighted that the great power politics is over in a multipolar world. The middle powers also have quite large room to exploit in international and regional governance. But we know from the literature that these middle powers, in order to establish smart coalitions among themselves, they need to determine certain niche areas, certain cooperation areas. And you highlighted MICTA example. And again, I would like to hear more about the potentials of MICTA coalition. What's the role conception of these states, and what kind of possible cooperation areas do you identify among potential cooperation between these states? And the final related question is about South Korea's pivotal middle power strategy. What is the niche diplomatic area of South Korea in international and regional governance? Which platform do you see is the most convenient platform for South Korea to contribute to regional and global governance? And thank you again for your presentation.
What was the first one again?
The peaceful rise of China.
Peaceful rise of China.
Yes.
And
what's Korea's perspective about this issue? Do you think that there is such a kind of concept?
Okay.
Can we talk about
Just
this?
to follow up, yes, Mustafa's second question. I am Isama from Osaka as well. Thank you very much for your really insightful and the full articulated presentation, Mr. Ambassador. My question, just to follow up to Mustafa's, is therefore the mid-power diplomacy. How do you evaluate the institutional capacity of the mid-power, that mid-power diplomacy can be based on, and in military and in international institutions, as we already know that for the great power politics they have their own institutions, the United Nations Security Council, the other institutions militarily and also politically, but where are the mid-power political institutions that you can name of, or how you're going to forecast for the future, the mechanism for this? Thank you.
Okay. Again, three very important and good questions. Thank you. Your neighbor is rising very fast, right? Your neighbor will say, we rise peacefully, but as you've said, that there's no way for you to know the real intention. So you always have to prepare. Okay? You always have to prepare. That's why I said in the beginning that Korea faces two big problems. First one, we have to deal with North Korean nuclear threat. Second one is rise of China and potential collision between U.S. and China. For the region to be stable and peaceful, I argue that current hegemonic power or current leader of the region and the international system has to maintain power preponderance over potential challenger, then it is peaceful. It's totally against, for example, Henry Kissinger's argument, balance of power. You have to maintain power balance to maintain peace and stability. In Europe, since the Napoleonic War, always, after the peace treaty, they always want to go back to previous, balance of power, but the stability was a temporary one. You all end up fighting against each other. I argue differently, If you maintain power preponderance, then system can be peaceful. So, U.S. and U.S. allies' power together should maintain power preponderance over any potential challenger, including China. China now know about it. Xi Jinping, China, decided to scrap non-alignment policy. And China said, now we are going to have alliance also. So, SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and CICA, and rapprochement with Russia, I think, demonstrate that China is going toward that direction. United States alone can never maintain current international order, right? Without support of Germany, France, Britain, Japan, Korea, Turkey, U.S. can never maintain so-called, its status quo. China knows about it. China started to learn that. The Chinese scholar who's most popular in America and also in China as a professor in Tsinghua University, he said, hegemonic stability is the key. But United States is different hegemon. U.S. has a double standard. It's a bad hegemon. With its friend, deal with it very nicely, benevolent. But with its enemy, it's very harsh. But China is a humane hegemon. benevolent hegemon. China is going to be humane, benevolent hegemon. Then everybody will live peacefully, like a tributary system. If you tribute to us, it will be peaceful. So Chinese start to argue. So like that, for me to answer your first question, as allies, trustworthy ally of the United States, together with Japan and others, not NATO, including Turkey, right? If U.S. can maintain power preponderance in the region, then China would not dare to challenge United States militarily. Okay? So that's, I don't know if that answers to your question or not, but the second, niche areas important, right? Because the one big difference between great power and middle powers are, I say pivotal middle power. Now, middle powers is a very ambiguous definition. Anybody, any country can claim that it's middle power, right? I agree. I mean, Norway, very important middle power, play very important, arbitration, role and peacekeeping role. Very respected country with a high economic volume, right? But it's only about 5 million or less than 5 million population size. Not so much located in geostrategically. So Norway plays a very important role, but I do not want to consider Norway as a pivotal middle power. To be considered as a pivotal middle power, you have to have both. On the one hand, you have to have a national capability strong enough to have some influence, exert some influence on the regional base. Military, economic, political, population size altogether. On the other, you have to demonstrate diplomatic styles, which is contributing to global society, rule-abiding by, the institutions and rules and norms abiding country, and resolve conflict peacefully and multilaterally. Those, as I say, diplomatic style. Some scholars talk about behavioral, normative, and functional, but I put all those together as a diplomatic style. So you, on the one hand, have a capability, and on the other, you demonstrate that kind of diplomatic style, contributive, moral, peaceful. That kind of diplomatic style, then I consider as a pivotal middle power. So there are whole, 40, 50, 60 middle powers in the world, but maybe a little bit less than 20 pivotal middle power in the world. So, and those pivotal middle powers still different from great power, because great power has a capability to exert their influence over their interest worldwide. But middle powers don't. Only on the regional base. And great powers have almost all the interest globally. But middle powers have only several interests. They can focus. And on that several, 1 or 2 or 3 areas, they can be better than great powers, resource-wise, technology-wise. So you have to have strong technocrats, bureaucracies. You have to have strong bureaucracies to support that. Entrepreneurial skills, you have to have that. Diplomatic skills in specific issue areas. So that's different. MIGTA, as I said, there's no common thing for MIGTA. So many people say it's just coffee, meeting or something. They just get together, diplomats get together and drink coffee and talk about this and that. And if something happens in Ukraine, they say, "Hey, it's not good. Behave yourself." They drink and they, smoke cigar. And that's it. But as I said, it could be more than that. We could develop that into, level up into a better meeting. Refugee issue, for example, you are very much respected because you receive most Syrian refugee. Korea, although we do not have Syrian refugee, many, only several, very small number, but we have about 30,000 North Korean deserters. We have to learn from how to manage, refugee camps and all those. Australia has refugee problems. So all these 5 countries have refugee problems. So maybe on that issue we can start later on, not right now. Right now I think that we should drink coffee more often. That's more important. But later on I think we can develop that kind of areas, niche areas.
You should also include tea as well, sir.
Which one?
Coffee plus tea.
Oh, plus tea, sorry. Yeah, tea as well, right. For your question about institution, well, great powers have institution like United Nations. Some says it's very efficient, others say it's not efficient at all. They have so many UN Security Council resolutions to deal with North Korean nuclear issue. They say 2020-70 is one of the strongest. But will that resolve this North Korean nuclear issue? No. It's just an institution. They get together. They try to do something, but it won't work perfectly, right? They'll try to work very hard. So I say, pivotal middle powers, they do not have this kind of institutions. I think, sooner or later, we have to come up with that kind of institution without including great powers, we say. Americans would love to join. China would love to join. We say, no, this is for just the pivotal middle powers. We could do that. Yeah, we could do that. Because that kind of institution may not be a big deal for them. They say, okay, who cares about that institution? Yeah? Some cares about UN, others don't, right? So it's about time for us to develop that kind of institution for pivotal middle powers. And last, South Korea's niche areas. First, I say sustainable development. As I've said in the beginning, with your support, with the Turkey's support, with the 16 countries' support, we saved our lives. And in a very short period of time, only 30, 40 years, we become economically and politically so successful country. So many underdeveloped countries and developing countries talked about the Washington consensus. At some point, they changed from Washington consensus to Beijing consensus because they thought that authoritarian governments, control of economy and everything could be very much successful economically because we have witnessed Chinese economic growth, so fast Chinese economic growth. But now China is in trouble. Xi Jinping said, okay, I will maintain 6.5% growth rate. If Xi Jinping does not, then his legitimacy will have problem. I know how to manage. I know Xi Jinping will manage. But anyway, I should not go over. So instead of Washington consensus, Beijing consensus, I think the Seoul consensus could be very much helpful. On the one hand, economic development. On the other hand, a process of democratization. It took time, but compared to other countries, it's kind of historic. We can hardly find comparable case in recent history. In this short period of time, economically successful, and at the same time, democratic process was also very much successful. So, sustainable development, and we have 600,000 military. well, we have to deal with North Korean threat. If we unify, then how are we going to do with that many, personnel, military personnel? I think that we have to play more role in peacekeeping operations. I'm right now, the advisor to minister, defense minister. And I say to him, we have this strong military, but peacekeeping operation, we have only one commander. In the history of peacekeeping, we participate many, only one commander. That's shameful, I say, We have to contribute more. So in that area, we can be, better. So I think this niche area as well. Green growth, we've been very successful. So we established GGGI, Global, GGGI, Global Green Growth Institute in Korea. It's an international organization. And Swedish, many president and prime ministers participated in this. And we also successfully hosted GCF, right? Green Climate Fund. It's not comparable to IMF, but who knows, in 50 years from now, could be as important as the IMF, right? So we've already become very successful in green growth area. So there are 3 or 4 areas that Korea can play important role as a pivotal middle power. But the problem, again, as I said, if you become politician, you want to do things of your own in your period of time. 4 years, 5 years. So your previous, leaders, your predecessors' accomplishment, you do not want to take on and carry out. That's the problem. It's a problem always in the United States, in Britain, in Korea, everywhere in the world, right? That's the problem. But for the sake of global prosperity, I think we have to. We have to. Someone has to. And I argue strongly that we have to emphasize this green growth. GGGI, GCF. I don't know how it'll be received, but we have to.
We almost come to an end of our time. I will collect some questions, then we will go.
Okay, Professor Kim, thank you very much for your conference. It was really very valuable and full of information about us. I'm Ertan Gökmen from Ankara University Department of Korean Language and Literature. And this is our second time meeting. First one was in Korea, I remember right after we met here. I would like to ask some related questions. First one is what is the role of Kim Jong-un now for unification of the Korean Peninsula? Right after, if you make a comparison between his grandfather Kim Il-sung and his father Kim Jong-il, is it on the way of really solving this issues like nuclear problem or the stability of peninsula, as you mentioned, or the international issues in terms of reunification of the peninsula? For example, if you can open just the dimension of the Kaesong industrial area example, for example, there is some problems has occurred last year in the Kaesong area. Is it on the way of solving, and what is the role on the way of reunification of the Korean Peninsula once again? And nowadays, there is a discussion in South Korea on new presidency elections next year. And Mr. General Secretary of United Nations will be a new candidate for the president of South Korea for next year. And what can be his role on the solving of the problem in the Korean Peninsula? Thank you very much.
This is Mehmet Yiğin. I'm from Center for American Studies. And I want to thank you for your clear and really thought-provoking presentation. I wonder that in your presentation you mentioned the cooperation between these mid-range powers in order to challenge the great powers. But your niche areas are not seem to be challenging the great powers that much. And in the near future, maybe we can say that we will not have a Cold War-like relationship. It will be a complicated one. As you said, that the U.S. wants to balance China, but also want to cooperate with it. So there will be counterbalancing and cross-cutting relations. So if middle powers wants to challenge the great powers in certain areas where the great powers' interests are actually converging, so can it make a counter-reaction of great powers cooperating against the middle powers? So here I want to ask this question. Yes, there are certain areas that we can cooperate, but is there certain limits about in what areas we can cooperate? Because for Turkey, it's not a problem to help South Korea on a matter in Asia, because it's not a problem for us. For Korea, it's not a problem to support Turkey on Syria or other things. But this is because we are regional powers. But when we talk about Syria or North Korea, it both interests China and U.S. and they can cooperate on certain issues. So that's what I really wonder about. What do you think that the possible limits, or if you think that there is no limits, how it can be achieved?
Is there any
Şahat Kubat, Hacettepe University, Department of Linguistics and Political Science. My question can be seen as a follow-up to Professor Gökmen's question. What do you think is the biggest change that came with Kim Jong-un's regime? And the second question of mine is about the reunification of Korean Peninsula. As you know, many experts talk about reunification, and when they talk about it, they generally mention the collapse of North Korean regime economically. But is this the only way to make this process, come true? This is the second question. Thank you very much.
Is there any? Yeah.
Thank you. All important question, but too many questions. Great. Okay, Kim Jong-un's role. The difference between, to me, the difference between Kim Jong-un and his father and his grandfather is that he's really serious about having nuclear weapons. His father, many speculated that nuclear weapon could be used by North Korea as a bargaining chip. But not anymore. Kim Jong-un really wants to have a nuclear capability. That's it. His policy is called the parallel policy, meaning he wants to have economic development on the one hand and also have a successful declaration of nuclear power in the world on the other. Okay? So that's the biggest difference, I feel. Unification, when we talk about Korean unification, many scholars ask us, are you ready for the unification? Because it will be very costly economically. You look at German case. Did you study German case, very carefully, fully enough, so that you're ready for, Korean unification? For unification issue for Koreans, there are some young people who start to say, why do we have to unify? We don't have to. We live alone, peacefully. As long as North Koreans do not threaten us, it'll be good enough. But for most of the Korean people, unification is not for not just for political or economic issues. In deep inside of our heart, our goal, our hope is a unification. Because one day you wake up, your father, yesterday your father visited north part of Korea for business. And then next day you woke up, country is divided. Your father can never come back. Now, there are millions of separate families in Korea. For how many years they want to have unification. They want to have a unified family, live together. It's just more than economic thing, political thing. It's a human thing, humane thing, Human beings, so we have to accomplish. We know that it could be very costly, but at the same time, we have opportunity. Many people say Industrial Revolution era is finishing up. You are not going to have a high, economic growth anymore with manufacturing and all these. So you have to have AI or artificial intelligence or robot or whatever. You need to have something different, breakthrough, technological breakthrough or anything. But for Korea, who knows? Unification could be a breakthrough for us. We never experienced that low range, labor and abundant natural resources. So many things that we could get. We could start industrial revolution all over again. Only Korea after unification. So we have to do it. But how? As you mentioned, unless North Korean regime collapses, it is very difficult. We want to have a peaceful unification. North Koreans, for 3 generations, always wanted to have unification, but under communist regime. So they say red unification, red color, excuse me, it's not Turkish red, it's North Korean red color unification. So that's why we are slowing down. We do not know when the moment is coming, will come. But at some point, the moment will come. Many say, even current American administration also seems to have assumption that the Kim Jong-un regime will collapse sooner or later. But based on that assumption, policy toward North Korea will always fail. North Korean regime will not collapse soon unless Kim Jong-un has a health problem. Unless Kim Jong-un has a health problem, Kim Jong-un regime will last long. On that, I have no answer. If North Korea collapses, then, as I said, neighboring great powers will help us for peaceful unification. But other than that, we have to always prepare for the unification. Because it's more than something, for Koreans, it's something more than just economic, political unification. Election issue, Secretary General, that I don't know, yes, Does it have anything to do with this pivotal power role or something? Yeah, maybe he's the Secretary General of the United Nations. He may run. Yeah, he may run for the presidency. But some Koreans support the idea of him running for the president because he could be really, really good president for Korean unification. He'll get a lot of support from all over the world. Others say maybe not a good idea because another 100, 200 years, Korea will never have another Secretary General. So this is, one big event in world history, and we have to keep that world history there. Because politics, you all know that it's very messy, You go into the politics, that's it. Your honor, your everything loses. Your face, all be muddy, we know that. We do not want that happen to our leader, Ban Ki-moon. So some says yes, others say no. But I don't know, he'll run or not, but some says he will run. Finally, middle power challenge great power. Middle power will not challenge great power. Middle power never challenges great power. Middle power is by definition, role is so-called the first follower, meaning the first follower of hegemon to maintain status quo. Middle power always prefer to maintain status quo. They never want to change status quo. Existing global society wants to be prosperous. That's what middle powers want to do. But as I said, great power always set up the norms and rules and everything, and then give that to small powers. And I say that's not a good idea. Some pivotal middle powers have to participate in the process of setting up that norms, rules of the world. So we play important role in maintaining status quo, but on the other hand, we also raise our voice. So the existing rule, norms, law is not just for great powers, but for small powers as well, for the minorities as well. So pay more attention to things that great power may not have much interest. There are many areas, right? Great power may not have interest. In those areas, pivotal middle powers play important roles. On security area, very difficult for pivotal middle power to play important role. On military issue area, it's difficult. And South China Sea, Korea, Australia, Indonesia together play key role. No, we cannot do that. But for other areas, and then we may later on have a better image and get better public opinion, world opinion, right, on that South China Sea issue as well. So it's not, middle power challenging against great power. Yeah? Middle power always go together with great powers. Yeah? But by getting together, we can raise our voices. Alone, we become so small in front of great power. But together, we can raise voice on many issues. That's the limitation that I understand.
Okay, thank you. It was very introductory, how can I say, this is the introductory lesson to Asian affairs particularly, and also middle power discussions on another interesting chapter. And also there is a very stimulating discussions afterwards. I would like to thank to all, particularly Professor Kim, for his very groundbreaking speech here. And also I would like to thank to all participants here. So also please join to thank to Professor Kim again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, My name is Özgür. I'm working for the Center for Eurasian Studies. It's a think tank in Ankara. And I believe you have met my director, Mr. Alep Kılıç. He's the former Turkish ambassador. And he told